makes me wanna holler, go away. I need more peace and hope and love. Where do I find it in this crazy old world? I need strategies, strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio. Every time I listen, Lauren and David share strategies for living, and it makes me aware. I've got strategies for living, strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab.
You know, we need them. We need those strategies, don't we? Those strategies for living. So are you ready? You ready for your daily dose of radio rehab?
I am ready today. I hope everyone else is ready.
Yeah, I hope so. Hey, folks, welcome. Welcome into another edition of Strategies for Living. I'm Dr. David McMillian. She is psychotherapist, PLPC Leon McMillian. And, you know, we cover a wide variety of subjects here on strategies.
Such as the human life and the human psyche, yes?
It is. And I can't even imagine. It's unthinkable to me. I can't even imagine that back on a February morning, our life strategist received the call that no parent can fathom. Her 32-year-old beautiful daughter, Miranda, had been found dead in her Brooklyn apartment. And in an instant, her world split in two, the life before and the life that somehow has to continue. And Danielle Crittenden has written a beautiful book. Mm-hmm. It's called Dispatches from Grief, A Mother's Journey Through the Unthinkable. You know, again...
It's such an important story and topic for all of us, I think, to learn from and to understand better, because we all deal with grief.
Absolutely.
All throughout life, no matter where you are or how you live.
You're exactly right. However,
yes,
I can't think of anything that would be as phenomenal as that call.
I
losing a child or a grandchild. It's not supposed to be that way.
That's not how it's supposed to work.
It's supposed to be just the opposite. So we're going to have a very, very important and honest conversation today with our life strategist, Danielle Crittenden, here on Strategies for Living. Glad you're here. And we're glad our sponsors make it all possible. We thank them. The Robinson Film Center, Azalea Cleaners, Pintail Roofing, Learning RX, We Train Your Brain, the Balanced Life Wellness Center, Fertitta's Delicatessen, home of The Godfather, Alligator Italian Sausage, some pretty good muffies too, SRT Sales Training, Uprising Addiction Center, and Mira Direct Primary Care, a mother's journey through the unthinkable. Danielle Crittenden, our life strategist today, here on Strategies for Living. Come back with us.
Tune in daily, find the light. Healthy mind and spirits bright. Strategies for living strong. Feel the vibe, it won't go wrong. Body moves and soul align. Catch the rhythm, feel the time. Radio rehab every day. Chase those clouds of gray away. Your daily dose of radio rehab. Lift you up when skies seem drab. Mind and body, spirits free. Living life in harmony.
And welcome into Strategies for Living. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian. Let's welcome into the program now Danielle Crittenden. She's a journalist, an author, former host of the popular podcast, The Filmsplainers. known for her incisive and original commentary on women, family, and modern life. Her work has appeared in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Atlantic. She's the author of 4 previous books, including What Our Mothers Didn't Tell Us, Why Happiness Eludes the Modern Woman, praised by Vanity Fair as the work of one of the most important new thinkers about women and family. Danielle was born in Toronto and lives in Washington, D.C. with her husband, author David Fromm. Danielle, welcome to Strategies.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, first of all, let's get this out of the way. I love the title, Dispatches from Grief. You got my attention right away. I knew what I knew what the book was about somewhat. Your publicist had filled me in, and I got the book in, and I saw the title, and I thought, wow, Dispatches from Grief. How did that title come to you? How did that download to you?
Well, when something like this happens to you, tragedy you can't foresee, you feel like you've been sent into another land. I call it the alternative universe. And that life as you knew it is gone. The person as you were is gone. And I grew up in a newspaper family. I began my writing life as a news reporter, chasing ambulances and things like that.
Right.
And I learned that when something happens to you, you should write about it. And so this was, of course, not a book I wanted or ever expected to write. But early on in my grief, I found myself in this horrific alternative universe, and I felt like a foreign correspondent. I felt I needed to send dispatches. It's always in my head been the title, Dispatches, to the outside world about what this was like. It was like covering a war zone in a way. So I realize that might sound strange to most people because it wasn't like journaling or something I would have, I'd find myself curled up and howling on the bathroom floor. And when I was able to kind of compose myself, I would go up and just take a note about what that was like and what happened and how it felt. So it's kind of weird. You get this ability to cover yourself, and these notes that I was scratching down, also in a way to make sense of something you actually can't make sense of. Right. They became, they thought, I started to think, well, maybe I'll publish them as an essay, and then they just accumulated and they became a book.
Let's, well, again, thank you for that explanation. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Introduce Miranda to us. Tell us about Miranda. She was 32 years old.
Yes.
What do we need to know about Miranda?
Well, she was the eldest of 3 children. We have a son who was 32 at the time she died 2 years ago, and a younger daughter who was 22 at the time she died. She had a non-malignant but rare brain tumor removed 5 years before she died. And in the course of the surgery, the tumor was discovered to have eaten her pituitary gland. So that was gone. But the surgeon and eventually her endocrinologist assured her and us that you could live a perfectly normal life. You just had to take this daily cocktail of medications and hormones. And, it takes a while to get that balance. And I think she felt that she had gotten it right.
Right.
And she was diligent, and she saw, she went for regular checkups and such. But no doctor ever said to her that, well, you know what, if you kind of misdose on certain things, you could suddenly drop dead. And that's what happened. The hormones have some bad effects and side effects, and I think she was trying to work with those. But in the end, it didn't work. But as a person, um, it's hard. It's actually very hard to describe a child in whole, let alone write about them.
Sure.
And originally, she didn't appear in my book because I was very focused on keeping it about the grief, the experience of this maternal grief, and not bringing her into it. And then one of my actually, she was my first editor. I sent her an early draft. She said, I need Miranda. I need to know her. So I wove her in, and she was one of the things that is important, I think, with any memory of a dead relation, no matter who they are, is the way you keep them alive is you tell them in whole. Like, you don't erase their failings or their quirks.
Right.
Like, you don't deify them. And so Miranda was my most hair-raising child. I think
Okay.
I think I went on Zoloft which was about age 16.
Okay.
She had literally no regard for authority of any kind.
Yeah.
But not like in a unlawful way. She just was indifferent to it.
Yeah.
And you're like, right from the get-go, right from nursery school, she would be in nursery school and she would be trying on costumes, and then the teacher would gently say, well, kids, now it's time to move to coloring. And Miranda would just stay with her costumes and just ignore.
She saw no need.
Why? I'm having a good time. And she wasn't like rude or,
Right.
through fits. She was very serene, very much into her own head, and she just wouldn't change. And that sort of was her whole life, but it led her to be this very dynamic, creative, unbelievably witty woman. She was very clever, although she hated school. She, in that same indifference, she didn't see the point of math or, anything.
Right.
She wasn't interested in, but she was a voracious reader. She loved history and was very keen to be in the world. So when she graduated, she lasted about a semester in university and immediately took up a job as a TV booker. And she loved it. She was a good writer, and she eventually decided she wanted, after a family trip, to live in Tel Aviv because it was the coolest place she'd ever seen.
Yeah.
Very youthful, very, artistic. She loved the culture side of it. And there she became a fashion model. She was discovered as a fashion model.
Huh.
She's very beautiful.
Right.
Which also made my hair stand on end. And she then did modeling throughout, in Israel, but also in Paris, in Japan. And she loved the adventure of it. And she also wrote about it for the Daily Beast. She wrote under a pseudonym because she was one of these early people. Although she was in her early 20s, she saw 16-year-old models and how exploited they were and how vulnerable they were. They didn't have parents with them. So she began writing about that and advocating, for the protection of young women in the modeling agency. And then she ended up moving to LA, and she spent time working in Hollywood. She loved Los Angeles. She said it was like living in Israel without the missiles. And you don't have to barter for a mattress, Mom. It's great. And then when the pandemic hit, she moved back with us because she was, vulnerable medically to infections.
Right.
Sure.
And then she decided to stay on the East Coast, and she moved to Brooklyn, and she was just, she was at a point where she just felt, I think, very confident in her life, very just, the illness had been conquered. She thought, she was in a good space. And then this happened.
Wow.
Now, you didn't think you were a stranger to grief because both you and your husband, David, had had losses. You had to say goodbye to parents. How was this?
Mm-hmm.
How was this different? What surprised you?
Well, the first line in my book is, I thought I knew grief. And I go through the different types of losses that we've had, all involving parents. David had a mother who died prematurely at 54 from leukemia that she had been fighting for actually 19 years of her life. When she died, it felt sudden, but it wasn't sudden because she entered the hospital and the doctors all assured us she would be fine, but then she wasn't. And but when you grow up, and I think in a child's head, there's always the thought, not always, present, but that you are going to outlive your parents.
Yeah.
And the parent always presumes, in the natural order of things, that you are going to die before your children. And so when a child dies before you, and also in such an unexpected way, although from mothers I've talked to who've lost children to leukemia or whatever, there's no better way to it doesn't matter how they died.
Right,
it's still
right. There's no
the
good
same
way. Yeah.
There's no good way. There's no rational way you can think about it. Your entire world in every way turns upside down, and the pain is unbearable. The pain is something you've never experienced.
We are talking about grief today. The book is called Dispatches from Grief, A Mother's Journey Through the Unthinkable. Danielle Crittenden is our life strategist. Here on Strategies for Living, we've got much more to come. Stay with us.
Facing the same old problems day to day makes you wanna holler, get away. Looking for the road that'll get me there. Looking for hope and peace to spare. Looking for strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio.
Welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. Danielle Crittenden is our life strategist today. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian. Beautiful book, Dispatches from Grief, A Mother's Journey Through the Unthinkable. You can find it wherever you buy books. You can find it at your favorite bookseller. And Danielle is with us today as our life strategist. So, what is the most important thing? I'm going to kind of begin at the end here, kind of. What is the most important thing? This is not an easy book to read. But it's an important book. And what do you want people to walk away with, Danielle? What do you, when they finish the book, what do you want people to walk away with?
I think there are two reactions or two audiences for this book, which again were not in my head as I was writing it. One are the people, the fellow parents, the fellow mothers who are in this universe. And I don't think people who have never experienced this, and why should they, right? Like, I don't expect anyone to understand this. The sheer, it's not just an emotional pain, it's a sheer physicality of the pain. Mm-hmm. I woke up every morning feeling like an ice pick was going through my heart. Yeah. Like literally you feel pain. Yeah. And then the grief itself is so overwhelming because you see your child everywhere. She's in every corner of your home. She's on all these paths you used to take. I couldn't go into a supermarket because I'd pass things that I once would have bought for her. So there, the sort of PTSD aspect of it, the triggers are real.
Yeah.
And you get tired. And I talk about trauma, and I eventually talk about EMDR therapy, which really helps. But your brain is just not able to process this level of trauma. It just doesn't know what to do with it. And so you are fatigued, you get clumsy. I learned that the mortality of parents, especially mothers, who lose a child, it's very, goes up that you will die within 5 years because you either commit suicide, become an addict, or just die from general clumsiness and, self-neglect.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect of it that I think people on the other side don't understand, especially if you know someone who is in this situation. So part of it was articulating for the people in this situation what it feels like. And when I sent an early draft to another grieving mother that I knew I joined, she said, "Thank you. Now I have something to show people." So the grief is not tidy. You do not, I don't think any grief is tidy, by the way. That you suddenly realize this whole stages theory is,
Yeah.
completely made up.
Not quite right. is it?
Yeah.
Right.
It's like you say waves, right? Kind of something that
Yeah,
arrives in
it's also-
waves.
Yeah, like you don't go through this. You're in such pain, and you look to these books for advice, and you're told, first you're going to get angry, and then you're going to do this, and then you'll get to accept it. It's like, no, that doesn't happen.
No, it bounces back and forth, doesn't it?
Yeah. My son said they don't tell you that you can experience all the stages at once.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can.
And you never get over it. You just have to accept that you're never getting over the death of your child. You're going to learn to cope with it. You're somehow going to learn to carry it, but you're not going to get over it.
Yeah.
But the second side of it is I know how difficult it is for people who have not been through this, who know people are through this. And I think with death in general, people who just have, your grandparents might have died, but, North America, thanks to modern medicine, we don't live in a culture where people are just dying all the time like they
Right.
used to.
Right.
And so they don't know what to do. They don't know how to react. And I talk a lot about that. Some of it is comical, some of the very comical things that people say and happen to you when you're, in this world. But a lot of it is people, the impulse of people, and this is a good impulse, is to try and comfort you. Is they hate seeing you sad. They're horrified on your behalf
Right.
that something like this has happened, and they want you to feel better. And the grieving person not only can't feel better, but at some level they don't want to feel better. They want this tragedy recognized, and so everything that you say is trying to make them feel better hits the wrong way. And again, I know it comes from a good place. So, well, you're going to get through this. You're a strong person. One day you'll feel better. And you don't want that. You want people to lean into the suck. Just say, this is terrible. This is awful. Miranda was wonderful. I know how much you loved her. I know how much she loved you. Let me go get you another scotch. Like that's
Yeah.
that's what you want.
Yeah.
You want a hug. You want actually people not even to say anything. Like I was very grateful to my friends, my close friends who they just showed up. They said, "You want to go for a walk? You want to have some coffee? You want to have some wine?"
Yeah.
They let me talk. And I call myself at one point a grief bore, but they just listened and just kind of took care of me. And that, I'm just so grateful for that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't have that. And
Right.
and the world moves on as it does, and your friends move on as they do, and you're just left alone, not moving on, and the world doesn't understand why not. They don't understand why you can't.
A lot of us try to, with our emotions, we try to intellectualize them, right? Or we stay busy.
Yes.
So what would your advice be? What would your counsel be for someone to reconnect and truly connect with their feelings and emotions?
You mean someone in grief?
Yes.
Reconnect?
Yes.
Yeah, people say, you hear that every bit of advice about grief is always you have to face it, you have to go through it, you can't hide. And I think that's true, actually, because when you suppress it, all you're doing really is suppressing the trauma, and it's going to keep coming back to bite you.
Right.
So, and that's what I tried to do in this book. I just tried to face it head on and describe exactly what it was like and how I felt and got. I mean, I haven't gotten through it, obviously, but just what that feels like and process how it processes. But I think, my husband has said this, because it doesn't just affect you; it affects your family. It can
Sure.
affect your marriage.
Sure.
I can completely understand marriages collapsing because of this.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband David has said that, and he thinks, I know we're not allowed to make sexist generalizations anymore, but he says, like, he can and could, after a little bit, he felt he couldn't write for a while, but then he wrote a very beautiful article for The Atlantic about Miranda, and that was the first thing that he could write, and then that opened the floodgates, and he's able to write. But he is able to lose himself in tasks. C.S. Lewis, who wrote a beautiful book on grief called A Grief Observed, talked about how he could go back to work and write all day, but then the minute he came up, he would be hit by the grief. For me, the grief is just a constant and has been a constant. And I almost envied his ability to be able to sort of lose himself in work for a period in a way that I wasn't able to do. And it doesn't mean we were grieving less than one another, but it just meant we were doing it in different ways. And of course, your children grieve differently because they've lost a sibling.
Right.
It's like a kind of, they've had this, she was the eldest, she'd been in their lives their whole life. They were close. She was like the leader of all fun and things. And it's like just, a missile hitting the submarine. There's a hole blown apart in the family structure, and the water starts gushing in. And you got to figure out how are we going to work together going forward?
It sounds like from your description, you had a wonderful support system around you of friends and folks that really understood and helped you. But a lot of times it's like we abandon because we're not because out of anything else except
we don't know how to.
We don't know how,
like
and
you
we're
said.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why are we so uncomfortable with grief?
Well, I think we're lucky to be this uncomfortable. I mean, sometimes people criticize Americans for being like, we just don't understand grief. We just try and hide it and blah, blah, blah. And we look to other cultures that have much more, greater traditions about death and recognizing it and bringing it into their lives. But I think there are two things. I think Americans are, first of all, fixers. That there's no shortage of books promising me that I can fix my grief. I can be happy again. The America basically believes that everybody should and will be happy. And then the second thing is that we don't experience death, as I said earlier, the way we used to. Although we may be beginning again as children start to die from measles and catch diseases that we never thought we'd see again. And that's a good thing, because, science has been good to us, although it wasn't good for my daughter. It does fail.
Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful book. It's called Dispatches from Grief. It's a mother's journey through the unthinkable, and you can find it at your favorite bookseller. Danielle Crittenden is the author, and she's our life strategist today, sharing her journey with us. When we come back, I want to get into kind of some of the spiritual aspect of this. Can we do that, Danielle?
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
We'll be back. More strategies for living in just a moment with Danielle Crittenden. Stay with us.
We all have problems every day. We all need help along the way. We need strategies Strategies for living radio.
And welcome back in. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. Lauren, Leon McMillian, David McMillian. Danielle Crittenden is our life strategist today. Beautiful book that she has out, Dispatches from Grief, a mother's journey through the unthinkable. You can find it wherever you buy books. You can find it at your favorite bookseller. Yeah.
Danielle, you kind of mentioned this earlier about how grief shakes your identity, and I'd imagine, especially in your case, I often talk about grief as a kind of a great transformer. How did you find yourself becoming a different person through the process, and if so, how?
Well, I think you're very brutally thrown into becoming a different person, because the child that you raised is gone from your life, and she formed me, and especially as our eldest, as a mother. It was from her I learned how to be a mother, just as much as I was trying to teach her how to become an adult. And as she got older, she, in her 20s, I adored her company. This is the thing that they don't, when your children are tiny and screaming and whatever, and you think, oh my gosh, they become these adults, and often they're just great. And she had a ability to understand people. She made friends wherever she went. And I just loved hanging out with her. And the person she brought out in me, I'll never be that way with another person.
Yeah.
And that's true in all of, our cases and with her close friends. But it also, you change because you've been just struck by something you never expected, and you have to find how you're going to live again. I think it's similar if you were to have a terrible accident and become paralyzed, or you were diagnosed suddenly with a terrible illness, that these are things that come out of left field and they change you, and now you have to figure out who you are with this new situation, and also how you're going to cope with it and deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it in any way become a doorway for you? Did you go searching? David mentioned at the end of the last segment about the spiritual aspect. Did you find yourself seeking ideas,
meaning and
and
wisdom? Yeah.
or transformation?
So because we're Jewish, we don't have that confidence of an afterlife or heaven. I can't sort of say, well, at least she's with Jesus and I know she's happy. there's no comfort. I appreciate that about Judaism. It's very real,
Yeah.
It's like, so it's not to say that there isn't spiritual comfort. And I found a lot of real comfort from the rituals of death that are part of Judaism. I did for a period, I read a lot of books about, that they're living on another plane, or they, by neuroscientists who want to prove that you continue to live in another realm. And then you have, just aside from that, and this is true of everyone I've spoken to who has lost someone, you just have these things happen, these little signs that are inexplicable in any way. One of the things that happened at the moment she died, which the medical examiner determined was around 3 a.m., her brother who lived, so she's in Brooklyn, her brother lived at that point in Los Angeles, and he woke up at midnight, which is 3 a.m. her time, he sat up bolt upright with a terrible, terrible sense of dread. And I've read actually so many accounts of relatives and especially siblings knowing that their their sibling has died
Right.
Yeah.
before being told the information.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things like that. And I wrote about some of the funny, I mean, they were kind of funny, inexplicable things that happened to me that I took as signs. So I've become, like, I don't want to get loopy or anything, but I've become open to this possibility that there is some existence, or there is some ability of our dead to reach out to us, at least as long as maybe we feel we need them to.
Yeah.
I've heard her voice sharply in my head when I least expect it. I write about the flowers that appeared magically in places they never had been, and just things like that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
What about the existential aspect? I mean, so many people who have loss, terrible loss, get kind of stuck on the why. Why did this have to happen?
Yeah.
How do I go? How can I possibly go on after this? What do you say?
Well,
what do you say to them?
I quote Christopher Hitchens, the late wonderful writer. He was a friend as well, and he died tragically from throat cancer. But he wrote this book about dying, and he said, to paraphrasing, but to those of us who say, "Why me?" The universe laughs and says, "Why not you?" It's. I mean, you think of like World War II and these soldiers coming over, a hill. And everybody to your left and right gets killed, but you somehow survive. And then you go on, and then you get a medal at the 60th anniversary of D-Day. You shake a president's hand. Were you heroic, or were you just lucky? And I think life is like that. You know, if something like this doesn't happen to you, you're lucky. But I don't take greater meaning like God really wanted to punish me, or let alone punish Miranda for this.
Sure.
It's, I think, just the randomness of the universe.
Yeah. There's so much packed into this book, Danielle, that including some of the quotes. And you open up with a quote that it got me from the very beginning. I hope death is like being carried to your bedroom when you were a child and fell asleep on the couch during a family party. I hope you can hear the laughter from the next room. We don't know who wrote that. That's an anonymous quote. But thank you for including it and all of the others. I love this work. I love what you're doing. Thank you so much for the courage and the fortitude and
not only to move through it the way you have, but to be willing to share it.
Absolutely.
With all of us.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for such a wonderful discussion.
Thank you. We'll be back to wrap up with Danielle Crittenden, but you can continue the conversation with her by getting a copy of Dispatches from Grief, A Mother's Journey Through the Unthinkable. Danielle Crittenden, wherever you buy books. We'll be back. And welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian, with the author of Dispatches from Grief, A Mother's Journey Through the Unthinkable, Danielle Crittenden. And Danielle, again, thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you for being a great life strategist. What do you want people to really take away from our conversation today and from the book?
Well, in sum, as we said earlier, the people who are suffering through this kind of grief, that they find recognition and that have somehow articulated their situation. The people who know, who are grief adjacent, who will gain a greater understanding into what those people, their friends, are suffering. And I think also the thing that I take away from this is how much I felt a lot of closure with Miranda because we were very close. And I told her how often I loved her. And just showing appreciation, vocal appreciation for the people in your lives is a good thing. Just thanking them for what they do.
Absolutely.
And showing that you appreciate them. And that is one of the things that has given me comfort in this otherwise unfathomable loss.
And again, thank you for the book. Thank you for being a great life strategist. The book is Dispatches from Grief. Danielle Crittenden, Mrs. McMillian, thank you.
Thank you.
And folks, thank you. Thank you for being a part of Strategies for Living. And we appreciate our sponsors who make it all possible. The Robinson Film Center, Azalea Cleaners, Pintail Roofing, Learning RX, We Train Your Brain, the Balanced Life Wellness Center, Fertitta's Delicatessen, home of The Godfather, Alligator Italian Sausage, and pretty good Muffies, too. SRT Sales Training, Uprising, Addiction Center, and Mira, Direct Primary Care. If today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call to make, who would you call? And what would you say? And why are you waiting? Make the call. For Lauren Leon McMillian and for Danielle Crittenden, I'm David McMillian. We'll see you next time right here on Strategies for Living.